how to actually escape the paycheck cycle. Write this down. If your income stopped tomorrow completely, no warning, how many weeks could you survive? For most people watching this right now, the honest answer is under 4. 4 weeks between you and total collapse. And you call that a stable life. I have spent my entire career sitting across from risk, sizing it, pricing it, deciding what could actually blow up a portfolio. And I am telling you, the average person's financial life is one of the most dangerously exposed positions I have ever seen, and they don't even know they're holding it. Not because they're careless, because nobody ever taught them to look. In the next 30 minutes, I am going to show you exactly how that trap was built and exactly how you get out of it permanently, using the same thinking I used to make some of the biggest calls of my career. Don't look away from this one. Before I go further, I need to say something. What I am about to teach you took me decades and a lot of losses to fully understand, and I am about to hand it to you for free. All I ask is you subscribe right now before you get distracted and forget. This channel exists to teach you how money really works, not the version they taught you in school. Hit subscribe, because the next part of this video alone could change how much money you have in 10 years. Let's go. Here is the first thing you have to accept. The paycheck cycle is not an accident. It is a system, and the system works exactly the way it was built to work. You go to work, you get paid. You spend most of it on bills and a little bit of it on things that make you feel better about working so much. And then the money is gone before the next paycheck arrives. That is not a personal failure. That is the design. Companies need reliable labor, so they pay you just enough to keep showing up, but not so much that you stop needing the job. I am not saying this to make you angry at your employer. I am saying this because you need to understand the game before you can win it. In my career, the biggest mistakes I ever saw in markets and in life came from people who did not understand the game they were actually playing. They thought they were playing one game while a completely different game was happening around them. That is exactly what happens with a paycheck. You think the game is called work hard, get promoted, retire happy. The real game is called convert your only asset, which is time, into cash before that time runs out. And time always runs out. That is the part nobody wants to say out loud. Here is something I learned very early, and it applies just as much to a factory worker as it does to a fund manager. Your job is not an asset. An asset is something that pays you whether you show up or not. A job pays you only because you show up. The second you stop showing up, whether by choice, by illness, or because they decide to let you go, the income stops immediately. Zero notice in a lot of cases. That is an extremely fragile position to build your entire life on. And yet most people build their entire financial life on exactly that fragile foundation. They have one single point of failure, and they call it a career. Think about how strange that actually is once you say it out loud. Most people would never hand every single dollar they own to one company, one stock, one bet, and call that a smart plan. They know instinctively that putting everything into a single position is reckless. Yet those same people will hand 100% of their income-generating ability to a single employer without a second thought, because it does not feel like a bet. It feels like normal life, but it is a bet. It is the single largest, most concentrated bet most people will ever place in their entire lives, and almost nobody treats it that way. I have made some of my best decisions and avoided some of my worst losses by asking one simple question before I commit to anything. What happens if this one thing fails? If the honest answer is everything falls apart, that is a warning sign, not a stable plan. Your paycheck sitting alone, unsupported by anything else, is exactly that kind of warning sign. And most people never even notice it because the check keeps showing up month after month, until 1 month it doesn't. I have watched brilliant people far smarter than me on paper, get completely blindsided because they never once asked what happens if my income stops tomorrow. They assume stability because stability had shown up every 2 weeks for 10 years straight. But 10 years of a pattern holding does not mean the pattern is guaranteed to hold an 11th year. Markets teach you that lesson violently and quickly. Careers teach you that lesson slowly and quietly, which is almost worse because you don't see it coming until it has already arrived. I want to give you a real example of how this plays out. Because it is not abstract. Two people can earn the exact same salary, work the exact same job, live in the exact same city, and end up in completely different places 20 years later. The difference is almost never talent. It is almost never even income. It is what each of them believed a paycheck was for. One person believes the paycheck is the finish line. The check lands, the bills get paid, whatever is left gets spent on something that makes the week feel a little better, and the cycle resets. The other person believes the paycheck is just raw material, fuel that has to be directed somewhere on purpose, or it will get consumed by default. 20 years of that second belief, repeated over and over, produces a completely different life than 20 years of the first belief. Even with identical income the entire time, that is not a coincidence and it is not luck. It is the compounding result of one decision made correctly over and over, small enough each time that it barely felt like a decision at all. Now, here is the mindset flip, and this is the part that actually gets people out. You have to stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like an allocator. An allocator is someone who looks at every dollar that comes in and asks, where does this dollar do the most work for me? An employee looks at every dollar and asks, what do I need to spend this on right now? That single difference in questions is the difference between people who escape the cycle and people who stay in it for 40 years. I did not get good at markets by being smarter than everyone else. There were always people in the room with higher IQs than me. I got good by asking better questions before I put money at risk. What is my downside if I am wrong? What is my upside if I am right? Is this the right size for this bet given everything else going on? Nobody teaches regular people to ask these questions about their own paycheck. So they never do. They get the check, they pay the bills, they spend what's left, and they never once sit down and ask, where should this money actually go to work for me? I want to be very direct with you here, because I think honesty is the only thing worth anything in this space. You cannot invest your way out of a cycle where you are losing money every single month before you even start. If your spending is higher than your income, or so close to it that nothing is left over, none of what I am about to say will help you yet. And I would rather tell you that now than waste your time. So the first move, before any stock, before any real estate, before any of it, is to stop the bleeding. That means knowing your real number. Most people think they know what they spend every month. They are almost always wrong, usually by a significant amount, because small purchases hide from memory. A coffee here, a subscription there, a delivery fee you barely notice. None of it feels like anything at the moment, but stacked together across 30 days, it becomes a real, meaningful number. I want you to go look at your last 2 months of transactions and add up every single thing, not estimate it, add it. That number is going to be uncomfortable, and it should be. Discomfort is information. In markets, when a position starts making you uncomfortable, that discomfort is telling you something real about your risk. Your spending is no different. Once you have that real number, you separate it into two categories: things that keep you alive and functioning, and things that make you feel good in the moment but add nothing to your future. I am not telling you to live like a monk. I am telling you that every dollar sitting in that second category is a dollar that could be building your way out. And right now, it is doing nothing but disappearing. While you are fixing the leak, deal with any high interest debt as if it were an emergency, because it is one. If you are carrying a balance on a credit card charging you 20% or more, that debt is growing faster than almost any investment you could realistically make in a normal year. Paying that off is not boring. It is one of the highest returns you will ever get in your life, guaranteed, with no risk attached. Think about that for a second. In my career, I spent decades chasing returns, hunting for the trades that could move the needle in a meaningful way, and here is a return sitting right in front of most people doing nothing, ignored, because it does not feel exciting. I have taken plenty of risk in my career, calculated risk, sized correctly, with a real edge behind it. But I never confuse reckless with brave. Carrying expensive debt while trying to invest at the same time is not brave. It is just losing on two fronts at once. Fix that first. It is not glamorous. Nobody makes a video about how exciting it is to pay off a credit card, but it is the single fastest way to free up money that can actually start working for you instead of working against you. Build a small buffer too, a real one. Enough to cover a genuine emergency without reaching for a credit card the moment life throws something unexpected at you, because life will throw something unexpected at you. That part is not a maybe. One more thing on this before I move on, because I think it matters more than people realize. Do not confuse cutting expenses with punishing yourself. I have watched people take this advice go too far, cut everything that brought them any enjoyment at all, and burn out within a month, right back to old habits, sometimes worse than before because they overcorrected so hard. That is not discipline. That is a diet. And diets fail for the exact same reason budgets fail. They are built on restriction instead of direction. The goal is not to spend nothing. The goal is to spend on purpose. There is a real difference between a dollar you spent because you decided it was worth it and a dollar that simply vanished because you were not paying attention. The first kind of spending is completely fine, even necessary, because a life with zero enjoyment is not a life anyone can sustain long enough to actually reach the finish line. The second kind of spending is the one quietly keeping you stuck in a cycle, and most of your leaking dollars fall into that second category far more than people want to admit to themselves. Once the leak is plugged, this is where most people stop, and this is exactly where you need to keep going, because your job by itself, even a well-paying one, was never designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to make you stable. Stable and wealthy are not the same thing, and confusing the two is one of the most expensive mistakes a person can make in their whole life. To actually escape, you need a second engine, something that earns money that is not directly tied to trading your hours for dollars. This does not need to be some giant business on day one. It can start incredibly small, a skill you already have that someone else would pay for, something you can build on the side for a few hours a week without quitting the job that is currently keeping your lights on. The goal at the start is not to replace your income. The goal is simply to prove to yourself that you can generate a dollar that did not come from your employer. That first dollar changes something in your head. It proves the paycheck was never the only door out of the room. I want you to think about this the way I think about a position in the market. I never put my whole portfolio into one idea, no matter how confident I felt, because confidence is not the same as certainty, and I have been wrong plenty of times despite feeling completely sure. Your job is your biggest position right now, and it is 100% of your income, which means it is dangerously concentrated. Building a second stream of income is not about hustle culture nonsense or working yourself into the ground. It is risk management, plain and simple. You are diversifying the one thing that funds your entire life. Some of you will build a small service business. Some of you will build something around a skill you already have and just never monetized. Some of you will start incredibly small, an extra few $100s a month. And that is completely fine, because small and consistent beats big and inconsistent almost every single time in the real world, even though social media makes it look the opposite. Watch out for the trap here, though. The trap is spending money you do not have trying to look like a business owner before you have actually built anything. Real fancy branding, expensive equipment, a logo before a single sale. That is not building a second engine. That is just moving your paycheck problem into a new, more embarrassing category. Keep it lean until it proves itself with real revenue. Let the results earn the reinvestment, not the other way around. Let me tell you something about timing, because people always ask me about timing, whether it is markets or their own life. They want to know when the right moment is to start that second engine. Is the economy too uncertain right now? Is it too late to start? Here is the truth. There is never a perfect moment, and waiting for one is just a comfortable way of staying exactly where you are while telling yourself you are being careful. Every single economic cycle I have lived through, and I have lived through a lot of them, has produced people who built real wealth during it, and people who sat on the sidelines waiting for certainty that never arrived. Uncertainty is not the exception in this world. It is the permanent condition. The people who wait for it to disappear before they act are waiting for something that is never going to happen. You do not need certainty to start. You need a small, manageable first step and the willingness to adjust as you learn. which is exactly how every good decision I've ever made actually got made, not with total confidence up front, but with a reasonable first move and the discipline to reassess as new information comes in. Now let's talk about what to actually do with money once it starts freeing up, because this is where people get it most wrong. They think escaping the paycheck cycle means finding some incredible investment that doubles their money overnight. I have spent my entire career around markets, and I can tell you plainly, the people chasing that outcome lose money far more often than they make it. Real wealth is built by consistency, not by excitement. I call this putting your money to work automatically. Every single month, no matter what the market is doing, no matter what the news is saying, no matter how you feel that particular week, feelings are the enemy of good investing. The moment you let fear or excitement decide when you buy or sell, you have already lost the long game, because markets are designed to shake weak hands loose right before the biggest moves happen. I have seen it happen to seasoned professionals, let alone regular people checking their phone during a rough week and panic selling, exactly when they should be doing the opposite. You do not need to pick the next incredible stock to escape the paycheck cycle. You need to consistently put money into solid, diversified investments month after month, year after year, and let time do what time does. This is the least exciting advice in the world, and it is also the advice that actually works, which tells you something important about how markets really operate compared to how they are portrayed online. The people who quietly become wealthy are rarely the ones posting about their trades. They are the ones automatically investing a portion of every paycheck before they ever get the chance to spend it, treating that transfer like a bill they cannot skip. Set it up once, on the same day your paycheck lands, and let it become invisible to you. Because the money you never see is the money you never talk yourself out of investing. Do that for 5 years and look back. You will not recognize where you started. Do it for 15 and it will look like an entirely different life that is not luck. That is discipline compounding on itself quietly in the background, while everyone else is chasing headlines and hot tips that rarely pay off the way they promise. I also want to warn you about something, because it will happen, and I would rather you hear it from me now than get blindsided by it later. At some point after you start this, the market is going to drop, or your side income is going to have a slow month, or something unexpected is going to test whether you actually meant what you said about consistency, or whether you were only committed while things were easy. This is the moment that separates the people who actually escape the cycle from the people who talk about escaping the cycle for years without ever getting there. I have sat through drawdowns in my career that would make most people sick to their stomach, and the lesson I learned every single time was the same one. The temporary discomfort of staying the course is always smaller than the long-term cost of abandoning a good plan because a short stretch got uncomfortable. Your automatic investment does not need to feel exciting during a rough month. It needs to keep happening during a rough month. That is the entire point of making it automatic in the first place. So your worst emotional decision-making does not get a vote in the outcome. So here is your challenge. And I want you to actually do this, not just nod along and close the video. This week, pick one thing from everything I just walked through. Calculate your real spending number, or pay down one high-interest debt, or set up one automatic transfer into an investment account, even if it is small. Do not try to do all of it at once, because that is exactly how people quit after 3 days. Pick one action, do it in the next 7 days, and build from there. The paycheck cycle does not end with one big dramatic move. It ends with a series of small, boring, consistent decisions that most people are never willing to actually make. You can be the person who makes them. If this video gave you something real, subscribe, because I break down exactly how to think about money like this every single week. And I would rather you learn it here than learn it the hard way, the way I had to. I will see you in the next one.